Здравствуйте, я Тумун Цыдыпов.
Good morning, my name is Tumun Tsidipov. I'm the first Deputy General Director of Baikal Center from Web RF. Today we are talking about Baikal, the city of the 22nd century. This is a unique natural habitat. This concept has been shaped within the master plan of Lake Baikal, developed by request of President of the Russian Federation. Let me introduce the speakers and participants. Alexei Muratov, partner of Design Bureau Strelka, the developer of the design, who's going to make a major presentation today. Yuri Pyroligin, chief engineer of Lengi Pragor, he's going to share his prospects and his vision of this project. Zurikton Valentin Latunovsky, deputy head of the Russian Presidential Control Directorate, Andrei Sharonov, president of Skolkovo, Moscow School of Management, Kat Tully, founder and managing director, the School of International Futures from Great Britain, who is going to share her global overview, Konstantin Romanov, director of Big Data Products and Technologies from Beeline, he's talking about prospects and technologies, and Mr. Valentin Latunovsky, deputy head of the Russian Presidential Control Directorate. The creative team behind the Baikalsk project is much bigger and deeper. That consists of representatives of the authorities, local people, local residents, businesses, experts, and development institutions from the regions. We're going to talk about the concept. This discussion will be split into two parts: the overview of Baikalsk before 1940 and what we expect to develop in the 21st century. Alexei Muratov is going to talk about Lake Baikal, why it is unique and why it demands a lot of thought in its design and master planning. Apart from the inquisitiveness of our creative team, the main answer to this question is that it's a social contract. What I mean by social contract, it's more than consensus of the people involved in the project, such as the local residents, the governments, the businesses. But that's also a consensus between generations, between past generations and future generations. Within the concept Baikalsk, the city of this 22nd century, we're going to touch upon this topic and embrace all the stakeholders, embrace all the approaches. We're going to think about what new ways we can create or what ways we can delete for future generations. Alexei, please share your opinion on this topic.
Все, я включаю, да.
Да, пожалуйста.
Shall I share the screen? Excuse me, wait a second, I will do that.
Сейчас полный экран, да, мне нужен. Где он тут? Вид страницы, сейчас.
I'm sorry for the delay. I need to open, to share the screen and open it to all of participants. Can you see the screen? This is great. Let me warn you that I'm going to talk about not this 22nd century, but about this century. We are planning on the master plan of Baikal up to 2040, and we're more focused on this time frame, the current time frame. However, we have thought about solutions that will help Baikalsk to adapt to future change. Baikalsk today is a small town. The population is reducing. For the past 2 decades, it lost about a quarter of its residents. In 2013, a huge pulp and paper mill was closed down, and today this is over 700 hectares of contaminated territories on the shore of Baikal. In the next few years, this territory is expected to be cleaned and refurbished. And let me talk about the residential area. So initially it was production site, but since then we are focusing our attention on the people of the city, on residents. Today, cities and towns have to satisfy the demand of residents, to satisfy the needs of people, and it's truly acute for Russia because we know that the population of Russia is relatively small, and our towns and cities are looking for attracting more and more people. To do that, it is better to arrange the population around in nice cities. It's about the guarantee of a freedom of transportation within a town and development of transport, telecom infrastructure. However, the role of Irkutsk, the major city not far from Baikalsk, because it attracts more and more people from smaller cities. Reason number 3 is the natural richness and natural assets, as some people say. That can be a key factor when a person will make the decision where to live. And today, in this environment, this is a very important factor. In addition, this is also urban environment that attracts people. Alexei, I'm sorry, we do not see your presentation. Can you please share the screen again? Let me try to do this. I'm sorry. Hold on a second, please. Can you see the presentation now? I can change the slides. Can you see the slides changing? Now let's go back to the presentation. So today Baikalsk has one great advantage, is very unique natural habitat environment. This is a town located on the south shore of Baikal. It is neighbored. It is close to a major city. It is close to a ski resort, because a ski resort is a very important object in Baikalsk. Attracts a lot of people in winter, and another advantage of this town is that the residential buildings are low-rise, and this is a very comfortable town for its residents. So improve the quality of Baikalsk and further improve the development of the area is our focus. So we want to improve the current potentials. So we want to build beaches, build bicycle lanes, and we would like to focus on wooden architecture, low-rise buildings, apartment buildings. And in this respect, Baikalsk has all the potential to become a point of attraction in Russia. Furthermore, the transport availability is very good. It's on its way to another major town. Furthermore, on the premises of the paper and pulp mill, we would like to launch new projects in the sphere of green technology, in the sphere of social significance. They are expected to be integrated not only in production but also in research and ecological enlightenment of the dwellers of Baikalsk. Now, I suggest we take a look at Baikalsk 2030 from the viewpoint of a person from 2030. Let me quote Yelena, a top manager of a large company from St. Petersburg. She was born in Baikalsk. The year she finished school, the pulp and paper mill was closed down. Then she studied in St. Petersburg and came back to her native town, Lastichka. A speed train from Irkutsk takes her to the downtown within 1.5 hours. She is deciding to take a walk along the embankment of the town, and she is very happy to see the beautiful views and scenes. Now Baikal is becoming the center of tourist attraction of the town. Here we start walking pedestrian routes all across the city. Yelena has planned a couple of excursions to the local production sites, to the green production sites from Korea and Spain. They process wild-growing plants such as berries, nuts, herbs. She buys them in specially designated places. In the International Center for Water Resources, the largest enterprise of the region, she can enjoy the presentation of low-rise buildings. She takes a voyage on a boat. She is taken to Lake Baikal, and she notices that the town is so small that she cannot even see that. And she is recollecting her memories of the town when she participated in the youth championship in skiing. Today, the ski resort is of beautiful quality and is another point of attraction for tourists and ski lovers. She can take a route in push bicycle all over the town. In the valley next to the river, she is enjoying the views of the nature, and she's meeting the central square of a new district that replaced the pulp and paper mill. She can see the panoramic view of Baikal, and she realizes she missed this scenery for a long time. And then it occurs to her it's not a very bad idea to live in Baikalsk, to live on the shore of Baikal. Our Foresight vision is limited by 2040, but of course we wonder what will be happening after in the 50s and in the 60s and so on. Thank you so much. I hope that all together we will shape the image of the future Baikalsk. When I was preparing for wonderful initiatives. After a while, we will be able to move into this town and settle down and have families. Our children will grow up there. We treat it as a child, and we treat Baikalsk as a child, and we hope that this beautiful town will be inhabited by our families and our children. Talking about Baikalsk of the 22nd century, this is a city, a town, sorry, a community of people who will inherit the legacy of our generation, of the generation of our children and maybe grandchildren. So in this community, if we reconnect with this future community, with the future of the town, I think we will be able to think about better advice to our grandchildren who will pass this legacy to their children and grandchildren. So in this respect, I believe our discussion will focus more on specific things, specificities, on real ideas. That's going to make us a community of close friends, of a family. Yuri, can you please describe this community of a family and people who are dear to us, and what kind of issues it's going to address, and what roads we need to foster today?
Colleagues, good afternoon, everybody. I was thinking of what I can contribute to this session. Having thought about things which concern us, urban developers, I'm involved in urban development, urban construction, cities of the future. So the first point is, to be honest, future is something which we started talking and thinking about not long ago. It happened when Karl Marx formulated a philosophical principle. He said, dear philosophers, colleagues, the issue is not to explain the world. The issue is about changing the world. That's the crux of the problem. And that's when humanity started thinking about future, about ways to change it. And we have the right to do so because, as a matter of fact, Church already took care of this issue. We knew it long ago. So when this type of philosophical knowledge emerged, it got us thinking about our future. Now we started thinking about what's going to happen 100 years down the road. So it's a serious chunk of time. That's my first comment. When I think about this matter, naturally, I think about types of socialization of humankind. We all know, and a lot of people thought about it and described those types. There are three historic periods of socializations: ancient times, brutal times, primordial times, 12,000 years after the emergence of Homo sapiens and the first labor tools. That was the initial process of socialization. So 12,000 years since the emergence of Homo sapiens. Then there was a barbaric period. We identified, put some time frame on it, and there was a shift, a change when there emerged a society, a state with all its attributes, with economies, with laws, etc. It's a very brief period of time, a few thousand years. not hundreds of thousands of years, but about 2,500 years. What's attracting our attention now? We are about to witness the next shift, the next breaking point. The humanity will have a new type of socialization, and that new type of socialization will affect all cities, Baikalsk included. So what we are witnessing, people who deal with urban development. So not labor, not work is the key element of life. Employment is becoming the key element of people's life. And because it's important for us to keep people busy with something so that they don't commit crimes. And given the improvements in labor productivity, we have resolved the issue of physical productivity. So the issue on the agenda is how to keep people busy. Why are people moving to Moscow, not to Baikalsk? There are 800 towns and cities in this country that are losing population. Only 30% of our cities and towns are attracting people because we're living in a new socialization paradigm. People are increasingly in the Western countries, in our countries. So people are getting paid for idleness. We have unemployment benefits, and many people are living as parasites off of those benefits, and everybody's happy about it. So the surplus product produced by society is being spent on those people. Another point of interest, the emergence of super cities, so-called super cities. A super city is not a Moscow or New York. It's New York, Tokyo, Mumbai, Frankfurt, London as a single city. And they promote a certain type of socialization. And I think 100 years down the road, we'll have a society of mega cities. So we'll have a mega society. And national states are in a crisis currently from this standpoint. How does Baikalsk fit in this picture? Will Baikalsk have a niche in the world of future? It's an open question. If it finds its niche, what kind of function will it have? What kind of niche will it be? Baikalsk, in its own right, as an autonomous unit, will not be able to survive on its own. So it would need to play some function. Of course, it lies on the lake, on the Baikal Lake, and Baikal is a unique nature resource which has been around for millennia. Thank you. I think you set the framework for our discussions. I would like to let other experts speak, and then we'll return to the question you asked at the end later. So, of course, we would like to know how this community of people in Baikalsk, how to make it, how to keep it healthy, educated, multicultural, and attractive to new leaders, appealing to new leaders, and self-regenerating. Zorikto, could you please tell us, share your thoughts about Baikalsk as a place, as a town, which is already now located in a unique place of nature, at the cusp of nature and human settlement. First of all, can you hear me? Yes, we can hear fine. Thank you. When I when I think about an ideal town from nature's standpoint, I think that it won't be possible to achieve by 2040. But the time frame that you proposed, 100 years in the future, I think 100 years will be a sufficient time to develop technologies that would meet our needs. Why? The modern civilization is based on the acquisition of natural resources, and the explosive growth of population has been accompanied by a global degradation of natural resources, nature. More land is being used for agriculture, more oil, gas, coal has been extracted from the earth. So the situation when people just use resources, take it from the nature, use it, and throw it out in the form of CO2 emissions and household waste. I think in the long-term prospects, the situation is completely unsustainable. So the only way out is to try to make sure that the technologies which we're using in our lives, anything related to the human civilization, so to make those technologies approximate the level of efficiency of natural technologies. So the human settlements and technologies used there should become part of a circular economy, using as little resources from outside as possible, relying as much as possible on reusable resources, and producing as little waste as possible. So this is a brief comment on Alexei Muratov's intervention. I would like to say that talking about wild herbs, endemic herbs, the situation is catastrophic around the Baikal Lake. Probably you have seen boxes with Sagandala tea and with Sagandala herbs used as stimulating herbs. Today I came back from the Arctic, from the land of Franz Iosif. 10, 15 years ago, there were brushes of Sagandali, very popular herb. So you could see it all around the Baikal. But a few years ago, when I was taking a stroll along the shores, in the places where there used to be a lot of shrubs, I couldn't find a single blade of grass. So that's the case when we take everything from nature and do not regenerate, do not replenish it. So the situation with wild herbs is very challenging, but we can address it by learning how to cultivate, how to grow those wild herbs, maybe even in the urban context, trying to formulate goals for Baikalsk in the future. KPIs, so to say. The KPIs are very challenging, and they're unfeasible as it is. Speaking about water resources, because Baikalsk is on the shores of the lake, so zero emissions into water. Atmosphere, zero emissions into air. Energy, 100% renewable energy sources. Building materials, construction materials, we need to ensure nearly 100% reusable materials use. Food, we still need to feed our people. If we feed them with foodstuffs, inorganic foodstuffs, it would be bad for them. So we need to make sure that they eat healthy organic food. And this is all based on the flows of information. We need to make sure that all these resources are renewable. So looking at the modern technologies we have available that can meet these needs, the situation is fairly difficult. The modern day development of technologies and the current drive towards decarbonization. CO2 emissions is just a tiny part of human waste, and it's just a tiny aspect of how people are suppressing and dominating over nature. Now we have a political system which is easy to manage, but the challenges associated with living in the cities of future, ensuring their long-term sustainable development, our technologies are not sufficient to achieve this goal. So we believe that this new technological frontier, creating technologies, safe technologies for cities, for settlements, for nature, and for people, I think it's an enormous challenge which will become ever more relevant. Of course, challenge means opportunity, and Baikalsk as a testing ground for those new technologies. I think it's a very interesting topic, and so that's how I view Baikalsk. Thank you so much, Mr. Namsarayev. I think we will return to the points you made. You actually very smoothly brought us to the next topic, the marriage of nature and technologies. Mr. Romanov, could you please share with us your views on the world of big data technologies that have been evolving? Already now we're living in an epoch when the technological paradigms change very quickly, and new generations, they are having difficulties. They're living in a new paradigm, in a new reality, and older generations are having problems with adapting to them.
Good afternoon, dear all. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you for the floor. The technology is changing so fast. Everything is moving so fast and developing so fast that it's very hard to foresee the future. I don't think it's a good idea to plan the future. Maybe we should change the approach to planning towns, to planning infrastructure, and make it more operational, keeping track of how it affects the people, the residents, city dwellers. Now we have a lot of instruments that help track what is happening in the town, what kind of tourists are visiting it, what kind of dynamics it enjoys. Adding something new, adding new metrics, new data, studying the data, analyzing the data, we can find out what is really happening. So maybe if we change the approach, maybe if it's a 5-year planning or maybe 10-year planning, not 40-year planning, then we'll be able to adjust faster, to adjust the technology, to adjust to the need of people. I would like to share one more idea. I think it's the very correct thing that the focus of your master plan is on a person, on the resident. What I would like to add, maybe, today the modern trend is that a huge number of people have been working remotely, especially today in the years of the pandemic. And today we do not have to be residing in a specific place. It is possible for a person to move to a beautiful town, to move to clean air and clean water area. So I believe that there is a variety of people who are looking for the best habitat, for the best place of residence. They don't need to buy their the apartments or houses. They don't want to buy a car. It's important for them to live close to the nature. They will rent their cars, they will rent their flats or houses, they will arrange entertainment or schooling for their kids. And they can do that with a click of the smartphone. If we manage to create a kind of town of the future in Baikalsk, I will be the first permanent resident of this town. How do we choose a place to live? First of all, this has to be a clean environment. And today we apply a lot of technology. Just imagine a town where any litter or rubbish will be removed by a smart vehicle or smart machine that tracks, something like that. Or if a car is broken, it will be immediately fixed by a drone or a person. And I believe that it might be the first place on the planet where people will be willing to move, considering the environmental circumstances and the ecology and the beauty of Baikal. Thank you so much. I think the experts will comment on that at the very end. So considering all the rates, the technological rate of development, it is very hard to foresee what we're going to do and renew the plans for each 5 years or 10 years. Dear Kat, Katerina, can you please take a global view of Baikalsk to take a global outlook in terms of the technology of strategic foresight that you practice? The idea that I put into wording for you is that designing in a long-term perspective makes sense if you're thinking out of the box and taking a bird's eye view, zoom out, and you have to take a wider look at what you're planning on designing. And Yuri Pereligin mentioned that Baikalsk should be treated in terms of the global connections and connectivity. Please share your view of this town as a town of the future and maybe global trends that can emerge there or in other places. How can we treat the future of Baikalsk?
Thank you very much, Tumun. Thank you very much to all of you panelists for such a fascinating conversation. And I guess, this is an immensely exciting project. It's a real flagship 21st century project of the kind that there aren't that many around. It's a model of it being an intellectual center and sustainable growth. And what's interesting is that it's both a powerful outcome and you've been using a powerful process to get to the ideas. What really resonated before was some of the words that you said around family. You're very much seeing this as a kind of journey together to design this city of the future. And it opens from an outsider's perspective. It certainly opens up a part of the world that, especially to a Western hemisphere, is much less well known. So this project will be fascinating, not just for the UNESCOs that you mentioned, but for UN Habitat and UNEP. It'll be fascinating from an ethical investor's perspective, and it'll be very attractive to the international academic and think tank global community. So it'll be from those perspectives that I give some feedback. And, as Tumun said, I'm a Foresight practitioner. So we do look at the impact of global trends, changing technology, and how people can imagine a desired future together, but also manage the risk of issues happening that you can't influence, but you need to prepare for. And effectively what you're doing is, I think, picking up on Konstantin, we're not planning definitively for a future, but we are learning how to navigate an uncertain environment. And 3 points really stood out for me about your about all these proposals, which was A, the role of the story, B, the role of the people involved, and C, about the future. So in terms of the story, you have a very powerful narrative. That the letter from the future says what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, which I think is extremely powerful when you're reading it as an outside policy and investor. You're outlining the choices that you're making, and you're emphasizing that this isn't just about economic trends and reality, but you're approaching a kind of holistic life where governance and education and the cultural life of people is important. And so absolutely, as one of your, Zorigoto was talking about, putting circular economy and the language of the Sustainable Development Goals at the heart of this will really kind of bring it to life for the kind of UN community. In terms of the second point, which is around the people at the heart of it, you've outlined a very powerful story of a unique location. It's an intellectual center with centers of expertise, clusters, if you like. What I found interesting is that a lot of it was talking about what it's going to be like for a citizen living there, but it also feels as if you're going to have quite a lot of transient community there who are going to be part of your family, but perhaps not stay there forever. So different personas might help to kind of explore who they might be like, people who might stay there for 3 to 10 years, an earthquake expert from Japan, a student from Lake Victoria, young people who come here for a few years, like artists and environmentalists. So what does that kind of plurality of space look like for a community that I'm guessing is going to be quite international? And then the final point I thought was around the, making this an attractive investment through, your powerful lens of looking at the future. So I think you're appealing to two types of investors. One is quite traditional investors who are increasingly concerned about stranded assets and, stress testing your plans against different scenarios, how resilient they are against different scenarios in the future is really important. So these are things outside of your control. It's likely that there may well be another pandemic of some kind. And what's that going to do to eco-voluntarism and tourism? Are you prepared for that? What happens around should there be Indian-Chinese geopolitical stresses in the next 30 years? How do you ride out the volatility around the price of oil and carbon? What are likely severe climate change effects and the second and third order of them around migration flows, etc. So that's the traditional investor community. I think there's another you appeal also very much to the ethical investors who are focusing on long term and trying to kind of ensure that intergenerational fairness is built into their investments to surface the longer term benefits. And I think something about, first of all, there is an intergenerational fairness assessment framework that you can use that says of generations alive and in the future, including your grandchildren and your grandchildren's grandchildren, as the gentleman started off talking about, who wins and loses, who are the benefits and who's paying. And that will bring to the fore that this is a very powerful investment, especially for the future. And at the same time, it's then important to kind of build and make sure that older people's skills who perhaps are less relevant in this future, how do they get kind of made part of this, future vision and get to participate, and young people get to participate in developing this trajectory. So this is all very, very exciting. And I guess that the final point that I have around this intergenerational fairness piece is that, there is a trend increasingly that critical natural entities like lakes and rivers are getting environmental personhoods. They have the legal status of a person in international law, like the River Ganges and the Lake Erie, and feels like an agenda suitable for the ambitions of your new community, Baikalsk, that perhaps you could kind of focus and lead on that agenda for Lake Baikal. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I really hope to continue to be on this journey, because I think what you've been doing, all the long-term thinking around the Buryatia Republic, around Lake Baikal over the past few years, has been really powerful. So thank you for inviting me.
Спасибо большое, Кэт. Очень глубокие размышления, кросс-отраслевые, я бы даже сказал.
Thank you so much, Kat, for your thoughts, for cross-industry thoughts, if I may say so. I was greatly impressed by the idea, by the research of Professor Dasgupta, the Economic of Biodiversity, issued last year. It's the professor of the Cambridge University, research of Cambridge University professor, and focuses on the climate change ideas expressed at the climate change conference a few years ago. That sets the framework and some restrictions to where it comes from. First of all, in order to learn to find balance with the nature, we need to realize that under no condition the humankind will be able to leave planet Earth. That's why we should learn how to develop our own ecosystem. It's a very simple idea. Experts and practitioners and managers involved in the climate balance have to consider this idea. I would like to give the floor to Andrei Sharonov. Thank you so much, Andrei Vladimirovich. Thank you for your speech at the plenary session yesterday. So maybe finding commonalities with the discussion that we had yesterday, how to navigate a ship with our friends and families, with the people we know very well through the oceans and lakes of the unknown.
Thank you, Timon. It's an unusual genre for me, to be quite honest. Secondly, I think that the topic of management is not as important as the preservation of biodiversity. I think that management and the form of management 100 years down the road is more predictable than the technological development and ways to preserve biodiversity. I would like to make an aside remark following Yuri's intervention. I think that he credits Karl Marx with too much, and our national love for this leader, for this philosopher, created a lot of problems for this country. So since the ancient Greeks, people were obsessed with forecasting future and shaping future. So I wouldn't credit Karl Marx with this, because Campanella, who was 250 years before Karl Marx, wrote his well-known book, City of the Sun, and there were many other people before Karl Marx. So we can flatter ourselves, saying that we in this session are following their way, following their footsteps. How will management be arranged in the city of future? And I have not come up with any original, bright ideas. Maybe it's something about me. I think that all these ideas have already been voiced and fleshed out. So this decision, in case of Baikalsk, decision should be made not only at the level of Baikalsk, but also at the level of at the federal level. We would be moving towards the flattening of management system, deregulation, giving authority back to the local level. So problems should be addressed where they emerge, not at the federal or Republican level. Another important point, people who invested their money, they should have a stake in decision-making. They should have a say in decision-making. Money and their effort, their time, their creativity. So those people should have a say in decision-making right here, right now. And they need to be represented in the authorities. They should be represented in the advisory bodies that would be making decisions on the budget allocation, etc. Another popular thing nowadays, which has been actively discussed in Russia, participatory financing. It's a type of financing when taxpayers, people decide on how a portion of tax receipts of the budget. There are nuances, of course, but how the portion will be spent. So the executive authorities, they lose prerogative, they lose their monopoly over fiscal decisions. And what I thought is that incentivization system, the authorities, they should think about what would draw people to Baikalsk, what would keep people in Baikalsk. The current situation is not very appealing because over the last 20 years, a quarter population has left Baikalsk, but the city has a fantastic competitive advantage, the lake, the mountains. This instills hope, and I would think of how to engage marketing tools, how to sell in the proper sense of the word, how to sell the city to the outside world. I was thinking about Tereberka. It's a Russian town in the far north. It's a ghost town which came out of nowhere and which just capitalized hugely on its appearance in the movie, and it was a huge success. The profile has increased dramatically. So and of course, I hope that Baikalsk could follow this suit of Tereberka. I will stop here. Valentin Vasilievich Litunovsky, we discussed a lot the future of Baikalsk. Should it be a bottom-up process or top-down process? How can we make this a city an equilibrium city between nature and technologies? Please share your views. We don't have much time. We have 5 minutes left, and you have the remaining 5 minutes. May I share my screen with you? I want to show you some slides. Can you see them? No, not really. They should. Well, okay, now we do see it. Yeah. Can you see them now? Yes. Okay. Clearly, Baikalsk is on the same latitude as London. So it has 260 endemic species of fauna, a few thousand species of flora, varieties of flora. They're also waiting for their future. We can talk about the Huns and other ancient stories, but I think these two paradigms should meet each other halfway. So this is the city of tourism, Siberian town, a town on the lake. That's what we have so far. I think we should be guided by future. We should be navigated by future. And clearly, we need to have a certain level of thinking. People have general knowledge. We need to get philosophers involved, and we need to move towards the abstract thinking. What is an abstract level of thinking? That's what Toulon was talking about, strategic level of thinking. So if we take the pandemic, we used to have 36.6 average temperature across the globe. Then we had a fever. We responded. We addressed risks. Then we reach the inpatient clinic or outpatient clinic, and problem solved. So we need to change our living lifestyles. How can we do that? I would support Yuri. Our civilization is moving towards its demise. A lot of people spoke about it. Even the Rome Club wrote about it in its recent publication. We are at this point, a point of new civilizational conditions. We're about to witness a shift, civilizational shift. Jaspers wrote about the period when Islam, the Greeks emerged, and they created a new mentality that lasted for 2,000 years, 2,500 years. So we are in an anthropological shift. The past will demise, and we would need new philosophy, new mentality, new Weltanschauung for future. So there are 6 dialectic interchange basic categories. Human is at the heart, and 6 basic categories that he needs: economy, management, advanced development, security, ecology, and we will have, whatever our respected experts say, we will have to travel outside of the Earth into outer space. So what is environmental world creation, world building? We're not starting from scratch. We had Moiseyev, Vernadsky, Fuller, who said that Earth is a spaceship in which we are all moving. Where are we moving? Whither are we moving in the spaceship? We used to have socialists, capitalists. So I think that the world should be created for everybody, and we should, all of us should work for the world. It's an idea of planetarism. Whither is the society moving? Karl Otter said that we are in a transitional state from hierarchical state into a network state. We have network-based communication, network-based shops, So we are witnessing the emergence of a network world. And thanks to the network structure, many societies are able to survive now in the context of the pandemic. What Konstantin was saying, the new hybrid environment, marriage of real and virtual realities, artificial intellect, digital technologies, etc. So all these things will combine with the real world. Clearly, economy will be slightly different. It will be network-based. Probably money will disappear. So why we're saying it's a human-centric concept? Because the measure of wealth, the wealth will be measured not by money, but by people. People with a proper view on the world. The ancient Greeks told about it, the modern-day scientists talk about it. So what needs to be done? We should not miss this qualitative shift. In the 80s, when the internet emerged, some scientists said this is the way of the future. Many people disapproved. But the internet is here now, so we shouldn't we shouldn't overlook the new technological breakthroughs, e-planes, e-mobility, etc. So, to wrap it up, there is a need. The existing economic forms are outdated. We need to develop new directions for socio-humanitarian, planetaristic development that should cover different spheres, ecology, security, etc. And Baikalsk might become the center for the development of new types of socio-economic development of humanitarian scale. And the society will become smart, hopefully. Thank you, Timur, for inviting so many interesting people. We have Kat with us as well. So we have already, we're meeting a society of personalities. There's different structure of population, individual level, but a personality is a life, first of all, and that would make the lives of our young people meaningful. If we have a young people, what will they do? There are prospects we can move towards serving peace. Thank you so much.
Thank
you very much for your very substantive intervention. I did not really expect that you would show slides, but thank you for sharing your thoughts. I think the key idea I borrowed from your intervention is that this city of future is a manifesto of sorts, a manifesto which cannot be forecast right here, right now, but based on our internal categories, internal values. We can imagine, we can perceive, and we can work towards it. And this is the takeaway, I think, of this meeting and the Baikalsk development concept. I really liked your point about network platforms. Network platforms are being developed by individuals and personalities in various spheres, and sky is the limit here. Well, slides are for our designers, philosophers, methodologists. Let's start thinking together in a large community of creative individuals. So this is that's a lesson, or that's a contract, a commission for Mr. Sharonov. A lot of questions left untouched. A lot of questions would still need to be formulated, put on the agenda. We'll stay on this way, on this track. It's open, and let us shape up the image of, the beautiful image of the city of future. And I'm very happy that this beautiful city Baikalsk is in my home region.